Hi, everybody. Welcome to Next in Creator Media. I'm Mike Shields. I'm here with Lucia Moses. She is a senior correspondent at Business Insider. Hey, Lucia. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Mike. It's great to be here.
Lucia and I are old colleagues from Adweek, probably a decade ago or so. So I'm really excited to connect with you and talk. Lucia covers everything from Netflix to YouTube to podcasting to the Hollywood changes going on. So great time to talk to you. I wanted to ask you about you had a story this week about a lot of people have been wondering, the Netflix YouTube clash that maybe people didn't expect is becoming real. What does YouTube what does Netflix need to do about things? Do they need to engage with the creator world at all or not? You mentioned that they are talking to podcasters. Talk about what you learned there and what's going on in general.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's sort of an evolution of Netflix working with creators. So you go all the way back to when they had Cobra Kai,
which was born on YouTube, but is a huge hit on Netflix. Yeah, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah. And they have they have evolved in how they talk about YouTube. They've talked about it in the past as a threat. They know it's a threat to people's time. More recently, I've noticed them talking about it like in more like conciliatory terms, like, we have our strengths, we're, top shelf, premium long form content, and YouTube is, shorter form. And, obviously, YouTube doesn't pay for its content. It doesn't have a $17 billion.
Subtly saying that that's a lesser thing.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. But lately, they've talked about how, we have this great history of finding creators in other places and upping their game and bringing them to Netflix and making them successful. So now, next evolution of that, or next, I guess, stage of that evolution is looking at podcast creators who are podcasters, and thinking about how they could work on Netflix as they take another stab at the idea of the talk show on Netflix.
Right. Because do you think that is there thinking that while you could take a creator, there's a million kinds of creators on YouTube, but that might not translate so well. Some of the formats might not translate as well as that, as a podcaster might, where it is very talk showy. It's looser than maybe Letterman or something, but it might work better on that platform than other things.
Yeah, I think, a criticism of the past stabs that they've taken at doing talk shows on the platform is that they'll take somebody and as is their practice, they'll really produce it. It'll look very slick and snazzy.
Yeah.
And people want to see creators just kind of do their thing, hold forth, and they want to feel like they're hearing directly from that person.
Right. The authenticity, the unpolishedness is sort of a part of the appeal.
That's a core feature of it.
Yeah. Which is, it's funny because you talk to the traditional media companies, and they've been going through various stages of denial, have been, very much like YouTube doesn't really matter. That is, advertising doesn't work as well as short form, as people are screwing around. And then they've had to kind of maybe accept, this creator thing is kind of humongous, and it's like a generational shift in the way people entertain themselves. It had to catch Netflix a little bit by surprise because they were not that they're doing great. It's not like they're struggling. They've been so ascendant, but YouTube all of a sudden on the television is passing them quickly. So that they've got to, I guess everybody has to kind of react to that in some way.
Yeah. And you're seeing every major streamer, every global streamer is doing some version of this, right? You saw Amazon getting into doing the deal with Mr. Beast, with Beast Games. And Amazon is probably leaned in the most when it comes to creator content.
I want to come back to Amazon if we can. What do you think Netflix, let's stick with them for a second. How do you feel like they're, besides the whole creator push, and how do they figure out that use case? What's your take on the ad plan? For a while, it seemed like it was going slow. They're getting some traction. I don't know how big the audience is still. because they use kind of fuzzy numbers. But what's your sense in the market? Are they getting where they need to be?
I think there is a sense of optimism, like they're going to figure it out. Maybe they're not there yet, but they are, going from the crawl to the walk phase. So they are, over half of the people who sign up for Netflix now in the markets where the ad tier is available are taking the ad tier. It's not for nothing. They've raised the price on the ad freeze. It's, I don't know, close to $20 or something a month.
And it feels like it was $7 not that long
it's
ago.
Not nothing. That's all by design. They want you to take the ad tier, so they're kind of engineering that. I think something like, the estimate is like 45, 50 million US users on the ad tier. That's bigger than it used to be, but still small from an advertiser perspective.
Right.
I think Disney and Amazon are like twice that.
Right. And of course, Amazon turned on advertising for everybody overnight, where Netflix has either been trying to do it gradually. That's gotta sort of drive them a little nuts that they were trying to build this thing, and then all of a sudden Amazon came around the corner and flooded the market.
Yeah. It doesn't help your pricing. But they're going to be turning things on like programmatically this year for the US. So that'll
with their own stuff, right? With their own tech now.
Right.
Yeah. So that it'll be interesting to see how does that bring in a whole bunch more demands and make it easier to buy? I want to come back a little bit, circle back to the whole podcaster thing. It's obviously having a big moment when you see how many post-election everyone's into this alternative media hype, and that's how Trump did 1 million of them, and that's how we won, or that's the thing. Do you think podcasting? It's kind of been this. It's been a fast-growing medium for a while, but I feel like it got stuck in the audio bucket. Like it was a radio alternative, which is not a bad business, but it's not monstrous. Do you think that's going to change? Could this get into the video budgets and the upfront conversations, some of the podcasts out there, or is that a stretch?
Yeah, I could see that happening. I mean, I think a couple things. Podcast listeners are used to ads. They're used to those host read ads and increasingly, the programmatic ads. So it's friendly to ads. And I feel like YouTube made making a lot of noise, showing that they are not only a home for podcasting, but for video podcasting, for watching podcasts, is kind of like waking up people again to the fact that, this is not just for listening, this is for watching.
Yeah.
This is something like Gen Z is really doing in a big way. So I think it's going to be, another factor that gets advertisers to give these podcasts a second look.
And you mentioned in your article this week, I think that it's habitual, which, brands like that, they like that because it's television-like when it's consistent, when audiences are accumulated consistently.
Yeah. Appointment viewing. I mean, if you want to zoom out, it's just like another form of episodic content.
Yeah.
Whether it's, video or audio, it's appointment viewing.
What did you think this week? It's not super surprising, but with YouTube's, Neil Mohan does this annual letter, and they announced that the majority of their consumption, or at least viewing time, I think, is now on TV versus desktop and mobile, which you can see it coming, but it still feels like that's significant. Do you think that's going to resonate in the market in a big way? Does that mean anything?
Yeah. Like you said, you see it coming, but it's sort of like when in the past year they became like number one in the Nielsen gauge. Getting the biggest share of TV viewing. It happens 1 month, that's one thing. It happens for 6 months in a row is another thing. When you pass these milestones, then I feel like, there's really a tipping point. Everybody starts writing about it. Everybody has their hot takes. Everybody starts talking about it, and it just, it becomes more real. So, and YouTube has been, has always had this, a little bit of, you have some, advertisers or ad buyers, like, still kind of put them in that, um, less premium bucket, second tier bucket. It's not really TV. So this is like another, moment for YouTube to like drive home that, this is where the viewing is. This is where TV dollars, those big TV dollars should be going.
Yeah, and they've always had to fight that, the brand safety aspect because it's so wide open. I wonder if that's going to change, because brand safety seems like it's a little bit out of vogue right now, and you don't want to be seen as censoring, or we're in the masculine energy era again, so no one cares about of those issues.
Yeah. It makes it easier for them to make that argument, right?
Right. To dismiss those concerns.
Yeah. Although there's two kinds of brand safety. There's the really terrible stuff like, Nazis and hate stuff. And then there's just the, it's not appropriate for our brand because it's like, cat videos or
we have different
really
values,
stuff. It's not slick enough. It's not premium enough.
Right. Nobody's getting hurt, but yeah. Come back to Amazon. You mentioned Beast Games. It's been kind of fascinating, like, because you wrote about. I'm of two minds of this, and I don't know. It's hard to tell how big it is. It's if you look at some of Amazon's numbers, it's impressive. Mr. Beast tweets about how it's number one in all these markets. I don't know that it's like a cultural phenomenon that you might have expected. I don't know, but you're seeing Hollywood look at that and say, well, we want to get our own version of that. So what's your overall take on this Beast Games experiment where it is now? And then why is Hollywood trying to replicate this?
Yeah, it's like, back to what we were saying about Netflix. These, big global platforms, they need more stuff, and they need, the stuff that's popular with young audiences. And they see the rise of YouTube as a force in TV viewing. And they have realized that there's all this viewing going on over there, whether or media, consumption, whether it's like listening to podcasts or playing video games or watching creators, and, they would be, foolish to ignore it. Right. So I think, the Amazon, and Beast Games, phenomenon, the interest in, by these streamers and working with creators, has been going on for a while. Obviously the Amazon, getting the big, $1 million, deal with him is, really puts it on the road, on the map. It'll continue. And, I think, what's holding it back is there's still this, thinking among the legacy studios that, there's still a little bit of a discomfort level with working with creators, who, want to own their own stuff and want to
they've had control for their whole career. It's very different.
Totally control everything. And they're not, let's face it, Mr. Beast is in a class by himself. There's him and everybody else.
Right.
There's no other Mr. Beast. There's only a handful, I guess, of creators who really have what they want, or what they call like billboard quality.
Right.
Where
he was on Good Morning America.
No explanation needed.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know how many other kinds of deals are going to be in that territory is a good question. And I'm sure plus a lot of traditional media companies, they're in a tough spot right now, but they also have scars from the previous era when they bought MCNs and they invested in creators and it didn't work. So I'm sure there's some hesitancy there. I want to shift gears a little bit. What you've been writing about Disney recently, they had a pretty interesting earnings numbers recently where they're in a good place profitability wise, but Disney Plus is losing some subscribers. But then you also wrote about what's going on with their sports plans. What analysts make of what they're doing? Where they made the FUBU deal, they're going for, they're talking about other bundles, but then they're also going to ESPN on its own. What's your take, and what's the analyst community saying about there? Yeah,
it's to your first point, it's tricky. It's like I think it shows that it's hard to have profitability and streaming growth.
Yeah.
At the same time. It's one or the other. And, everybody, Wall Street wants them both.
Yeah. And is that going to bite you in the end at some point when Disney Plus is not putting out as many shows? So it's maybe more profitable, but I don't know if it's getting the habit you always talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you add up Disney and of course I have Hulu, it's still smaller, way smaller, than Amazon. Well, way smaller. Well, maybe it's about the same as Amazon. It's still like half the size of Netflix. When you think of like what Disney occupies in your headspace,
I know.
No, it's half.
And you look at the gauge numbers; it's never in the same territory as some of those big guys.
Yeah, yeah. Now Disney, like as a overall distributor, is the whole company is the biggest. Or about neck and neck with YouTube. But, if you're just talking about Disney Plus, where they think their future growth is going to come from, that's, we're starting to show some profitability. That's great. But then to your point, what about growth? Sports is, it's suddenly become like very complicated this year. A lot more options for sports fans. And I think if you're a hardcore fan, you have it figured out. Like, we're a YouTube, YouTube Live household here. But if you're a more casual fan, it's, where do you go? There's all these skinny bundles now. You have, Disney with its Fubo deal,
right?
Live with Hulu Live content. They're still talking about their flagship ESPN app coming out in the fall. And that's why they're starting to get questions, more questions about like, well, how do you explain the strategies? How is it not going to be confusing for viewers?
Yeah, I find myself confused. I am a pretty big sports fan. I'm always trying to think about what makes more sense. And I'm still hanging on to the cable because I have my local teams, and I'm thinking about there's the Gotham app. Would it make sense to get ESPN and YouTube TV? And at a certain point, it's kind of insane. And I know there's a new bundle coming along for one of the satellite guys. I don't know if that's going to get any real traction because all these things feel incomplete in a way.
Right. Yeah, you have to think that at some point there's going to be some consolidation, right?
But it's interesting because it seems inevitable. Like you see, Tubi had a really big numbers for the Super Bowl. There's a streaming first audience for these live events. I wonder if we're going to a place where you're going to have all the big sports rights go to streamers, and what does that do to the big media companies? And that's a ways away, but I wonder if that's around the corner and it's really going to change the dynamics.
Yeah. Everybody, wonders like, where is it on the calendar, and how the big leagues, still have that good relationship with the networks and want to keep it, and they kind of want to have it all. So, but I guess the biggest losers are the sports fans, right? Because it's not all just. Like
it's harder and more expensive.
Entertainment, scripted entertainment, just like all moved over to streaming.
Right.
Sports fans, you need like Excel sheet to kind of figure it out.
Yeah, very true. I want to ask you. You've been writing just a lot about the state of Hollywood lately, and what kind of they're making less. There's consolidation, and a lot of stuff is moving out of LA. This is before the horrible news of the last few months. What's the vibe right now when you talk to the Hollywood community? Or is it like just negativity, fear, uncertainty, and where do you think? What are some indicators of where the business might be headed?
Yeah, it's this shift out of Hollywood has been happening for a while. I mean, it's could look at it two ways. I mean, Hollywood is still the has like the lion's share of the industry. It is the bedrock. But you've got really good financial incentives coming from other states, other countries, Canada, overseas. And that I think is going to be, LA will talk about like sound stages and talent and services, but those incentives are the biggest driver of where the productions are going to go. And yeah, so there's a lot of malaise. You've got a lot fewer shows getting made. You've got fewer episodes of those shows. So a lot of less work to go around. On the other hand, there is growth, in other areas like, the creator economy and some growth in gaming. But, that doesn't just replace what's happening. Yeah.
No, and it's interesting bringing it back to the creators. You're seeing them, and Mr. Beast is famously in North Carolina, but like Neil Mohan was talking about, this creator's got a studio in Birmingham, and this one's in Texas, and Dude Perfect, like they're not central, or they definitely don't seem to be tied to LA, which I don't know what that means for the future of the business, but it seems like it's very fragmented.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. It's also true that like the rest of legacy Hollywood, the creator economy in LA is very strong as well. Yeah. But for sure there is a strong narrative about like Dude Perfects and others setting up shop in other places.
Lucia, what else should we be looking for the next couple months of this year? What are you eyeing in terms of like the ad market? The upfronts are even coming soon. What are some of the trends or things you're looking at right now?
Yeah, just oh shoot,
I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, just the where it seems like you got like Nielsen kind of reasserting itself. If you're paying attention to the granular buying
the currency wars.
Yeah. Ongoing demise of the cable networks. You have a lot of potential like really big M&A on the horizon. You've got those legacy networks being spun off. You got massive merger of these two ad holding companies, and everyone's talking about the potential for like a lot of people being out on the street as a result of that.
Seems like a deal friendly environment, but then you have the Trump hates media factor, so you don't know where these things are going to go.
Right. Do I, if I don't have to do a deal this year and I can wait till things, I see how things are playing out, maybe you do that, right?
Right. But no, it should be fascinating. Well, we're going to keep reading your coverage. Thank you so much for your time here. Great conversation, Lucia.
You bet. Glad to do it. Thanks.